All right. So we're going to talk about audio in Open Broadcaster. This is by no means comprehensive and might start off way simpler than you might need, but I hope you get something out of it. Anyway, so assuming you have a mic running into OBS, this goes for any audio source, but we'll be using my microphone here. The first thing that you need to be able to do is to read this bar, which a lot of people would assume that your goal is to either try to keep it below, like, the yellow or get it as close to the red as possible. Really, like, broadcast standard is about minus 15 decibels, which is where I have mine set, and you'll notice it never goes above that. We'll have more on that later, but generally that's around where you want to try to get everything to fall, at least as far as voice goes, like people on Discord. And then your desktop audio is, of course, lower than that. And there are some things that you can do to automatically duck the audio, but I will explain that later. But the first thing to note in OBS is once you have your mic running in, there are filters that you can apply, which you just do by either hitting the dots and going to filters or right-clicking. These filters are applied in a chain starting with the topmost and going downward. So how this is set up right now, even though I have them off, but like the noise gate that I have on here is before the compressor. So essentially the gate's going to activate on the signal before it's being compressed. And then it gets limited and then noise suppressed, etc., etc. So if you move these around, you can get different outcomes, but this is generally the order I use. So we'll go through these one by one. A couple of them you'll notice I do have off. I have the noise gate running in Voicemeeter right now, but like if I turn this one on, it's not going to do anything. But what a noise gate does is below a certain threshold, everything's measured in decibels. Below a certain threshold, it just cuts off sound entirely. Like it'll turn off whatever the sound source is. That is to facilitate not getting background noise in like button presses if they're of a low enough volume, or the sound of an air conditioner or what have you. So that's very important to add. You just add a filter by hitting the plus key, and then they're all listed here. VSTs we won't get into, that's a bit more complicated, but everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Or not self-explanatory, but I'll go through the important ones at least. So yeah, noise gate, I use like -32, -26. That seems to be pretty good. I didn't like, these are all the defaults that like this plugin starts with, and they seem fine. You can mess with them to your leisure. And like I said, mine's off because I have a noise gate applied in somewhere else, basically. Compressor. This can be used to for two things. One, you can apply this to your Discord chat to make it so that the people who are low will get brought up to the level of the people who are high, and basically just essentially, if you think about the dynamic range of loudness, a compressor compresses that so it makes everyone equally the same volume. There are various settings that you can use for this. This one, I think this is just what it comes with out of the box. I don't have it turned on because I don't need it on this microphone, but if I were, I would try with that setting and then go from there. There are compression settings that you can find on the internet that'll work pretty well. You just have to experiment. The ratio is how much compression there is. Threshold is when it starts applying it. And then attack is like when it how fast it opens, and release is how fast it closes the filter that's compressing everything. And then output gain is just, this is a gain after the compression that makes everything louder if you need it. There's also just a regular gain filter that we can talk about too. And this is just a simple slider that, like, you know, you pull it low, it's going to make people lower. You turn it up, it's going to make people higher. And this, in combination with a limiter, can achieve what the compressor does easier. Compressor is just a different way to do it, but I don't use the compressor much, but I do use a limiter, which is pretty simply explained as that's how I'm always hitting minus 12 every time, is that this channel is limited, so it can't go any higher than negative 12 decibels no matter how loud I yell into it. Like I could scream into it like this and it's just gonna distort. It's not going to actually blow out anybody's speakers. I recommend putting limiters on every channel in OBS, to be honest. Even your desktop audio, because you could end up with a sound source that's just way too loud for what you want it to be. And a limiter prevents your audience's ears from taking the punishment from that. There's also noise suppression, which this is basically just something that tries to, like, it's an algorithmic thing. It tries to filter out everything except human speech. I have to use Speaks on this computer, which is a shittier algorithm, basically, because this computer's a piece of crap. But if you have the bandwidth, RN noise is very good. It'll get out most everything, breath noise, air conditioners, pets, that kind of thing. And that is about it for simple audio stuff. The only other thing to talk about is filters on the desktop audio that I have. And once again, I have a limiter and I do have some gain. This is to basically, these two are basically to make everything hit within the same range. In this case, I have it set lower than negative 12. I think it's set about like, so this is set to negative 12, and then I have the volume lowered to about half, so it's actually negative 24. And, you know, I play with that depending on how loud I want the audio, but you'll notice there's two compressors here, and what these actually do is, when I have the volume of this desktop audio turned up to where it's the same, like, it's hitting that negative 12 like my voice is, what these will do is they're set up to use a ducking source for, like, one's for the mic and the other's for Discord, and it basically makes it so that if either of those channels get audio, aka if someone speaks, it automatically pulls the volume down on the desktop. I find this very convenient because it means I never have to worry about people not being able to hear me, and I have noticed it also can cut down on some editing time. Whether or not you want to implement those is up to you. You also, like, if you have your setup to where Discord and desktop audio are on the same track, you unfortunately aren't going to be able to do that. You just have to manually manage the volume of your desktop applications relative to Discord. But I do recommend, if you can, separating Discord out to its own device. That can get a bit hairy, depending on what your setup needs to be. It might need to involve Voicemeeter. There's also the option of what I'm doing here, which you'll see I have Discord set as a source. If you just add like an audio input and audio output capture, or even just like capture the window if you want to do it that way, although it's a bit overkill because you'd get the actual graphics of it too, which is unnecessary. But like, you can bring Discord in just the audio from it as a program. Although then you'd have to worry about filtering it out of your desktop audio, but that's kind of beyond the scope of what I was trying to convey here. The most important thing is these guys here, the limiter, and the either compressor or the gain that I showed you here for bringing everyone up, the limiter for keeping everyone under a certain threshold. I'd say those two are the most important. But yeah, let me know if you need any help with this stuff. But that is gonna be it.